Miss Craig. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have Miss LaShonda Craig here. She's with New Season. She is the program director for them, and she's been with them for 16 years. So she will be joining us today. We're going to be talking about some topics with opioid misuse and drug misuse that go on within African American communities. And as you all know, this month is Black History Month. So it was created in 1926, and at first it started off as just Negro History Week. But in 1976, the president at the time made it known that we had to make it a month. So then it became known as African American History Month. And then over time, it turned into Black History Month. So this month, we want to focus on just everything that goes on within the African American community and kind of recognize some of the struggles that are dealt with. So we want to go ahead and start off by just talking, just give us a little bit of background of what you've been able to do and the information that you've been able to acquire while working within, do you work specifically with people in the African American community, or do you deal with people from all over, Miss Craig?
I deal with people all over.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
So just wanted to go over kind of some of your knowledge that you have of everything that's going on and kind of take it from there. So have you noticed that there is an increase within the African American community of drug abuse? Is it more than what the white community deals with, or what the Latino community deals with?
No, well, right now, in most of what we do and what I do, what we focus on is medication assisted treatment.
Mhm.
Um, right now, my demographic makes up at least is 70% Caucasian and 30%, or right at 25% African American, and then the other 5%, pretty much Hispanic. But typically, we have always predominantly who pretty much come to treatment traditionally have always been um, the Caucasians or white America. We have been a little bit more resistant to treatment. However, this is a prevalent issue in our community. Since I have been doing this, I have definitely seen an increase of this issue affecting all areas of our community and all ages. I would say recently, with the federal government or the DEA cracking down on a lot of the pill mills and there's less opiates on the street, we have seen more of an influx of some of the aging. That's individuals 65 years age or older, have coming into treatment. A lot of these issues and what we kind of deal with and what we kind of see is, people start either illicit use or recreational use, and some people start by being in car accidents or some type of illness, and they're prescribed opiates from their doctor, and it's just an issue that kind of get out of control very quickly.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I recognize when you said that you deal with more Caucasians than that. Do you think that basically the African American community is a little bit more shameful when it comes to seeking out um, treatment? Like they're more ashamed to ask for that help? Why do you think that, they're more likely to not receive treatment?
Well, I think there are different factors. I think first, I think it's the lack of knowledge, the lack of education. I know even for me, prior to coming here, I didn't know that a place exists that can assist with drug abuse, through other medication and also with therapy. I did not even know that existed. So I think our community is not even aware of these type of programs. And I think secondly, I think it's more so, at one point I would say it could be an issue with financial issue, but now most of all drug treatments accept Medicaid, Medicare, and all types of insurance. And also there's a lot of money that have been came from the federal government for us in like source grants to each individual state to help to assist those who can't afford treatment. So right now, not being able to afford treatment is not much of a barrier, but getting them to actually want to come and to come, it continues to be a barrier. It's
Mhm.
still something I struggle with. Like, we know that this exists in our community. We see where between in 2015, based off of SAMHSA, Our overdose rates in our community was up by 40%. And, we still have people who suffer in our community, while they're not coming to treatment.
Mhm.
And so I definitely feel like it's just a lack of knowledge. They're just not aware that we exist, that we're here, that there's help for them. I think too, a lot of times in our community, we keep this very private. We don't really share that we having a problem. So therefore, even if someone know in our community, we can't really help them because we don't know what's really going on. And
Mhm.
it's something that have been a continued issue. So there are different factors that cause them not to come to treatment.
Yeah. I can definitely attest to the privacy of it all. Because I know when I was younger, I grew up in a community in Jacksonville that was lower income, and they used to have a place called the Happy Tree, and that's where a lot of people in the community would come and they would do drugs, they would drink a lot and gamble and stuff like that. And it was very excessive. Like I remember there would be certain times of the day when my mom would be like, "You don't even go outside," because I guess maybe she was just afraid something would happen or I would be exposed to the wrong thing. But even some of those people to this day, I still see them and they definitely have a problem, but they just don't want to tell anyone, or they tell people to mind their business, and things like that. And I definitely think that as a community, we need to take that step to not only educate, and that's one thing we do here at our agencies. We go out and we mainly focus on like kids and things like that, and we go into like the boys and girls clubs in the schools, but we like to go into places like the projects and give them flyers, let them know that they have pamphlets, they have places that they can go. But I think the first step is they have to recognize that they have a problem, and
Mhm.
that's one thing I have definitely come across is a lot of people think that, oh, I just, me drinking, that's fine, I'm an adult, I can do that, or me taking this fentanyl or this heroin, that's okay because I do it in moderation and I'm an adult and it's my business kind of thing. And they don't want to recognize that, they shouldn't be really following that path. And it's kind of exposing others to it as well. Like me as a kid, thankfully I stayed away from those things, but I do know other people, other kids in the community that I grew up with that were not so fortunate, that would see these things and would become curious and then
Mhm.
interested in it, and now they have a problem too themselves. So within the African American community, I know within the community I grew up in, heroin was huge and is still huge to this day. Is that still like a very common drug that African Americans still use?
Um, I would say yes. I guess it's kind of hard to answer that question because where we are located is in Montgomery, Alabama. Um, right now, a lot of the heroin use is really being it comes from either Birmingham area or coming from South.
Mm-hmm.
And then it being pushed into Montgomery. I think prior to 2 years ago, it was less prevalent. It's more prevalent now because it's less opiate pills on the streets. I do think that what has definitely increased in our community is meth use,
Mm-hmm.
and that's methamphetamines. It's easier for them to make it. People make it just right in their homes, and so we have definitely seen an influx of patients, or in our community that come in. They also have issues with maybe the marijuana. They may have opiate problem, and now they also having this meth problem. But
Mm-hmm.
a lot of them kind of supplement when they can't find the pills. They go with something that is the cheapest and the easiest and the quickest to get their hands on, which has been the meth amphetamines. And so that has become a huge problem as well. I think drug problem definitely is an issue in our community. I think one, we have been medicating ourselves. I think a lot of people in our community deal with mental illness, co-occurring disorders, some different types of disorders, and they don't know what's wrong. They just know they don't feel well. They just know they're not right in their head, or they're just not themselves. And as long as I take this, I feel better, I can be myself. And so they're not recognizing that as a drug problem. They
Mhm.
recognizing that as, I feel better. It makes me feel well. So, and I think too, that's where the education comes in. I think back in the early what 80s and 90s when we was pushing, making people aware of the cocaine issues in our community or marijuana. I think it need to be a huge push with, letting people know in our community about the opioid use, because I think it's starting from a younger generation as well, where they're not aware, that hey, this is what I'm potentially taking, that even though it can be prescribed from a doctor, I'm getting it from a pharmacy, or I'm getting it from grandma or whomever, it can be potentially dangerous.
Mhm. Especially amongst the younger generation, I see here like promethazine too. Because you can just kind of go to the doctor and get it. So they make, something called lean.
Mhm.
And I see a lot of younger kids, because they look up to, there's a lot of other people that they look up that are, kind of in the music industry and things like that. They want to participate in, drinking the lean and popping Molly and taking certain pills and things like that. And I think, do you think that maybe that kind of contributes to it as well? Like, I know there was like a few movies, we like to call them hood classics. I've heard some people call them, hood classics. And in a lot of these movies, it kind of portrays us like as big drug abusers, or big drug dealers and things like that. Do you think that that has a definite influence on a lot of these youth and kind of gets them on this path?
I definitely think a lot of the music, and yes, a lot of things that they see,
Mm-hmm.
because at an early age is teaching them that this is acceptable, this is okay, this is cool. And they start experimenting with the lean and different types of drugs. And I think at that point is like the gateway to using other drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point it can get out of control very quickly. So I definitely feel like just society, when it comes to the movies, the music, the social media, the YouTubes, they have downplayed, drug use so much to make it look as if it's cool, and it's actually not.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. And it's kind of actually scary because I remember going to the Boys and Girls Club, and these kids would find it funny, and they would be like, "Well, such and such does it, so why can't I?" And I'm like, these for one, some of these people in the music industry portray a lifestyle that they themselves don't even participate in. And that's why I feel like it's such a big influence. They just look up so much to them, and they just want to be like these people, so that's how they kind of get started on everything. And it's really scary, and it scares me, and it kind of scares me for my future children, because I'm like, should I maybe watch what they're listening to, so that way, because I don't want them to think that going out and doing pills or smoking weed or anything, or marijuana or anything like that is cool, because even though it may look cool, it's definitely damaging to you, and it's not a cool thing to do, and it can lead down a worse path, and things like that. So
Absolutely. And that's something, I have two kids, and, working in substance abuse, I know we cannot put them in a bubble. We cannot create this safeguard around them. So I just really educate them that, yes, these things may look cool. Yes, marijuana may look like it's just a cigarette, but let me tell you the potential effects of it. And I
mhm,
kind of break it down to their language. Yes, somebody may ask you to take a pill, because it makes them feel good. But guess what? You don't know what's in that pill. You don't know how you may, respond to that pill, and that pill have killed someone.
mhm,
And I don't think a lot of the youth relates some of the drug use to actual death, and or they can or they can literally they cannot really see how harmful it can be. So that has been my goal even with my own kids, is just to not only tell them, but also show them the potential effects of any type of drug use.
mhm. And all it really takes is one time, anything can happen. I think a lot of these kids, because they haven't maybe seen anyone actually die from whatever the drug is that they're willing to experiment on, they think that they're invincible. You know, teenagers and young kids already think they're invincible anyway. So because they really haven't seen the long term effects of it, or, you know, they think that they can just do it and won't anything happen to me. And I know that when I was growing up and I was in middle school and high school, I did have peers that were already smoking, that were already drinking excessively. And I see them now and they're just and not really able to hold jobs. They still have issues. They're in and out of jail. And it's really sad to see. And do you think honestly that this base like what am I trying to say? Do you think that these young kids, because they a lot of them think jail is cool too, but do you think that that kind of entices them as well to be like the other people that they're looking up to, in a sense? You get what I'm trying to ask? I'm sorry.
Um, it's almost as if, a lot of people are just not in tune to how they actually feel.
Mm-hmm.
They go through a day just fantasizing with what they're seeing on social media or YouTube's or whatever. So I think when it comes to the actual consequences of it, um, I don't think any of them even have a clue that this can lead to addiction or some behaviors can lead you to jail. I don't
Mm-hmm.
even think they even kind of rationalize the two. Um, I know recently in the last couple of years there has been a lot of not a lot, but some of the African American rappers who have either overdosed, not even just a rapper, but of course, if you think of Prince or Michael Jackson, I think something that has been a little bit more tangible for us, that some of the youth in our community, is like, hey, look at their life, and I think one of the rappers, he even rapped about how he enjoy, he can only perform or function if he was on Xanax. And I think
Mm-hmm.
he ended up accidentally OD'd. I think that was a good. I took that moment as an opportunity to sit down. Have my kids to sit down. Like, hey, you see what just happened to him. You see, even though he didn't intend to, look what actually happened. Look what he
Mm-hmm.
also was rapping about.
Mm-hmm.
Does this align with what you potentially want to be when you grow up? And I don't think, and I think we need to start younger because the kids are now are a little bit more advanced. Kids now have access to social media at a much earlier age than we did, which we didn't have it. So I think we need to just, when we need to start young, teaching the kids, like, not only just saying no, not only is that those things are bad, why are they bad? Okay, showing them, okay, this is what it can actually do. This person was young too, so age doesn't matter. And so we just have to kind of pour that education into them, and hopefully it affects our community. But this not only affects the youth in our community, it affects all ages in our community. I mean, you have some people who have, careers, had jobs, and all of a sudden they go through a midlife crisis and find themselves, on drugs at the age of 50 or the age of,
Mm-hmm.
60 or whomever. So, but why is that? And I think too, what I see is that, in our community, the biggest problem I see is that we don't know how to deal with issues.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how to communicate those issues, because, one, in our community, did you have someone there actually listening to you if there was a problem? So, they get to a point where my problem is irrelevant, and that could be a 50-year-old. We see that the same issue happen with them, where they feel like they don't have a voice, and they become numb to what they're feeling, and then they just started masking those feelings with drugs. So that also affects the youth, but it also can affect someone who's 50 or even older.
Wow, that's really true. It's all about, I guess, like how you cope with everything, your coping mechanisms.
Absolutely.
And
And that's the main thing, is that it just, and that's something that what we do in this agency, we not only treat patients with medication assisted treatment, but we also provide the therapy. So
Mhm.
every individual is, they have a counselor. that counselor develop, a plan, and is with the patient for as looking at their history, what what caused them to get to this point, and what are some things that we need to work on, and what are some positive coping skills that we can help you with to get you to a point where you don't need anything, or you can just maintain your life, where it can be more productive.
Hmm. And I like that. I think that therapy, I'm glad you said that, is very important. I encourage all my friends, like, if you're going through something, if there's something that I can't help you with, seek therapy, seek healthy coping mechanisms, healthy ways to kind of get your pain across to someone. Because I know I actually have a friend right now who's an educator, and he's kind of struggling with everything that's going on with the way COVID has kind of impacted teachers and stuff. And he kind of expressed to me that he was finding different ways. I mean, it's not, I'm not going to say, because any way that's not healthy is bad, but he was just trying to find other outlets to kind of deal, maybe drinking a little bit more just to sleep at night and, kind of get rid of that anxiety. And I told him, I said, listen, do whatever it takes to protect your peace, but just don't do that. If you have to tell your boss, hey, I need maybe a couple of days for a mental health, if you need to literally go to therapy, if you need to take a whole week off and come fly home and see family to help get your mind off things, do whatever it takes. Just don't turn to drugs or alcohol. And I know us, as in the Black community, we have different experiences than other races, and we go through a lot of things. I know a lot of people that have had very traumatic experiences, and they cope with them, they turn to drugs, and that's how they cope with everything. And I remember, when I was younger, there was some things that I kind of dealt with, but I was told I didn't need therapy. You don't need to tell anyone what's going on, you just need to learn how to deal with it. And so when you kind of tell a child that, that kind of leaves their mind open to, well, if I can't talk to someone, then how else am I supposed to deal with it? Um, so that's when, you kind of try and find other things. But I tell everybody, especially young Black kids, or just, Black teenagers, if you are going through something, talk to someone. There's always people out there that want to help, that want to listen. Just don't turn to drugs, to kind of cope with those problems and issues. And I'm glad you brought that up, especially the mental illness part that you brought up earlier. Mental illness is a huge stigma within the Black community. It's something that you just don't talk about. Like, if you're struggling with bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, you just don't talk about it. Like, oh, you're
Absolutely.
hearing voices, you might want to keep that to yourself. And I even have a family member that was recently diagnosed with schizophrenia, and it took her years to get help for it. And because in our family, it was really hush hush, swept under the rug. And that's a cycle that I'm going to break with my kids. Like, if they're feeling anything, I want them to be able to come to me. And if I can't help them, I want to be able to go out there and get them the help that they need, and be very proactive in that part of their lives.
Mhm.
So that's one thing
That's
I'm looking
good.
forward to.
And yes, our community, it's same way in my community as well. Some things you just do not talk about. But I also find that when you don't have that platform to seek help or to express how you actually feel, then you start entering adulthood. Even as an adult, you don't really know how to communicate how I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in a lot of that, it displayed through aggression, through just negative behaviors, angry outbursts, and just numerous of things. And so, a goal for me with my kids is that I believe in open communication. I believe in transparency, even in my home, because I have to teach them through by example. Even when I'm dealing with things and things are difficult for me, I have to be able to express that. And I want to express that in front of them so they know it's okay to say, okay, you know what? I'm having a hard time right now. I'm really feeling overwhelmed right now. And I have shown, or I try to display how that actually look for us, how I work through that, because
Mm-hmm.
life gonna happen to everyone. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's gonna happen, and it just how you bounce back and how you deal with those things. But you have to have some things in your toolbox to deal with those things. And I
Mm-hmm.
think just really being able to communicate on how you feel is definitely the most important. start
Mm-hmm.
in any issue. And so creating those platforms is important. So, now what we're dealing with when you're talking about the opioid epidemic in our African American community, it's really arise from issues just like as we discussed. You have adolescents, haven't don't know how to communicate on how they feel. They don't have anyone to actually talk to, and they just started getting lost in the world. And they just started massing all these problems with different type of experimental drug that they try out there, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of them try it through their friends. But now you have these adults. It's like, what do you do? How you can how to get an adult to really open up, how to get an adult to say, to admit that, okay, I have a problem. um that's continued to be a struggle, because what we deal with here in our agency, and we only treat those 18 years or older, is that they come in and say, well, hey, my family don't know about this. I want to make sure it's confidential, and of course we have to keep everything confidential and comply with all the HIPAA laws and everything. So a lot of patients and clients who are receiving services, a lot of their family members have no idea that they come here for services or for treatment. And and that's kind of, it's shocking, but it happens all the time.
Yeah.
So so if we start early with communicating, educating our youth in our community on the different options, on how to express their issues or concerns or problems, and how to be a little bit more open on how they feel, then we can have healthier adults. They can be able to embrace problems head on. They know where to go for help. They know it's okay. If I'm dealing with depression or anxiety, hey, it's fine. It's normal. It's just like I'm dealing with a hurt toe, and that's how we have to talk about it. It shouldn't be this big thing where, everybody just, gets so excited, and it kind of like, or start being very, judging people, and therefore it makes them a little bit more hesitant to reach out for help. So we definitely have to kind of change how we do things in our community.
That's right. And you made some awesome points, Miss Craig. Um, the seeking the help and getting treatment and I love the fact that you said be transparent.
Hmm.
Because that is, I feel like, a key in a lot of this, especially with families and people even wanting to seek treatment. You have to have that transparency there and making people feel safe.
Hmm.
And so I really appreciate this. You have given us some wonderful information today and really educated me on a lot of things that I wasn't even aware of. That goes on within communities and just in general. And I love that what y'all are doing over at New Season, not only offering the assisted treatment, but also getting the therapy at the same time. And I feel like that is very important. The therapy part, you know, I wouldn't say is the most important, but
It
it's
is.
vital. Yeah, it is. It's very vital because if you just are just kind of treating it, but not really trying to get to the root of the problem, then it's easier for it to come back up later. So yeah, this has been very informative, and I really appreciate you being on our podcast today. Do you have any final words or any final things that you would like to let our viewers know today?
The only thing I would like the viewers to know is that when you talk about medication assisted treatment, you're actually using buprenorphine or Suboxone to actually treat the withdrawals and in the cravings of the opioid use
Mhm.
or dependency. And so, and what it does is, most people, if anyone have seen the movie with Ray Charles and how he was sick in the bed, what the drugs does is just help with the patients not going through those detox symptoms, where they can start trying to have a clear mind. They can kind of start working on things, and then can really be more proactive in the therapy session. So that's why the medication with the therapy is so important.
Mhm. Yeah, that's awesome. And I hope all of our viewers out there really listen to everything that you said, and always remember that there are other agencies out there like yours that can offer this help. You just have to want the help and you have to look for the help. And if any of you that are watching this video have any questions or do need assistance or treatment, here at ASAP, we do not offer treatment, but we do have different referrals So we can refer you to a treatment center of your choice. Just let us know by visiting our website at asaprav.com or give us a call at 256-831-4436. Thank you. Remember, if you or a family member is struggling, just hold on, pain ends.